Asalamualaikum all, welcome back to my channel. I pray that you are all in the best of health and iman. If you are new, welcome. My name is Nafisa. I am a Muslimah life coach and I support Muslim women with relationship and mental health issues. So if you're interested in being coached in those areas, you can find me over on my website, which I will leave linked in the description box down below. But over here on YouTube, I make Islamic lifestyle as well as dawah content. So if you're interested in that, then definitely make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. So sisters, today's video is on the topic of things to look out for in case you meet a man who has bad intentions for you. So without any further ado, let's jump straight into today's video. Now, some may naively think, why would someone approach you with bad intentions? Well, oftentimes it's not necessarily that the intentions that they have is to harm you. Sometimes it's just that their intention is to benefit themselves, and it may come at a cost to you. The first sign is that he wants intimacy with you too soon. And I say too soon, not in terms of marriage. I'm saying too soon because I know that even though physical intimacy before marriage is not something that Islam condones, there are still a lot of people out there who are doing this, and I'm very much aware of that, and I know that there are even sisters, unfortunately, who engage in these things. But despite that, there are sisters who do this and brothers who do this. I still want to say to you that if a man is approaching you and his focus is on physical intimacy and everything to do with that, that just seems to be what he constantly talks about. That always seems to be where the conversation begins to lead to. Then what you have is possibly a sexually frustrated man, and a man who is sexually frustrated is a dangerous person to marry. Why? Because they may not be making the choice of a wife in their best interest, and it certainly probably won't be in your best interest either. In that case, they may be choosing a woman that they just feel can best fulfill those wishes. But then what lies beneath all that surface stuff when it comes to marriage? I encourage marriage for young people. I think it's good for you to do. I support the advice that the Prophet ﷺ has given us, because I believe that he's the best to advise us. And if he advises us to get married early, one of the benefits of which is that you will have protection against your need for physical intimacy. At the same time, though, I think that maturity is very important, and I think that knowing the person that you're getting involved with as much as possible, because you're never going to fully know him until you're actually in a marriage with him, but doing your due diligence in choosing a person that you marry is going to save you from a lot of heartache later on. If a man is just pushing you for physical intimacy, what are you going to find after he fulfills that physical intimacy? Because this is where you get the narcissistic men. This is where you get the abusive men. This is where you get the mentally and emotionally unstable men. This is where you get the men who lack commitment. You don't see none of that because you get carried away with all the physical stuff and, I can't wait to be physically intimate with this man. And then you go and do it. And some of the times, sisters who get involved in this, they find that after they've given themselves up a couple of times outside of marriage, the man, he gets bored with you and then he's on to his next move. Or later on, he realizes that there's something about you he doesn't like, and then he easily moves on. Why? Because you didn't wait until marriage to get involved in that type of a relationship with him. So if he's pressurizing you to go into this type of intimate relationship with him, it's a red flag. And I really do think you need to think very, very, very carefully before you choose him as a husband. Yes, every man is going to have a level of excitement for the physical stuff that relates to marriage. That is standard. But if your intuition is telling you that this is too much. That's all he ever seems to talk about. We never seem to have any serious conversations. He always wants to lead the conversation down that road. That I think that's something you want to hold back on, and you want to really think twice about if this is the type of person that you actually want to marry, or if he's actually ready to get married. A lot of men, I feel, think that they're ready to get married as soon as their hormones starts telling them that they need a woman. And there is more to marriage than that, especially for us women, because you could be married to your husband and there may be phases in your life where the physical intimacy is not the most important, because regardless of how well that is going, if emotionally you're unfulfilled, if you're being abused in any kind of way, the fact that you're having physical intimacy, it won't mean anything. So for us women, it's different for us, which is why I think you should prioritize it a bit different. So if he's pressurizing you, please just back off, take some time, think about it, give him a little bit of time to sort himself out, see if his mindset begins to change, and see if he's actually serious about marriage, or if he's just looking for some type of a halal girlfriend, you know? The second sign that you may have met a man with the wrong intentions is if he falls in love with you too fast. Guys, and I'm talking about a man who is too intense too soon. Like, naturally, for love to develop naturally, it's all about communication, getting to know one another. If this man is telling you within the first 2 weeks that he's met you that he loves you, oh boy, girl, I would be very careful if I was you. Very, very careful, because you know what? This could be a sign of love bombing. And love bombing is something that narcissistic men do so well. So well. They come in intense. They come in very quickly. They over bombard you with so much. And if you are a woman who hasn't worked on yourself, you've never dealt with your trauma, you've never had counseling, but you've been broken so many times, you see that and you think, oh my God, this man is sent from heaven. I've never met a man like this before. He's doing so much for me. Sometimes it could be a good sign, but you need to be in a mentally healthy place to be able to recognize when that is actually true and when that is healthy. But there's also a fine line between a healthy man giving you his attention and his love and a man who is just almost obsessed over you. That is very, very dangerous. That is a sign of insecurity within the man. It may also be a sign that there is something that he's hiding he doesn't want you to know. And so he's trying to grip you. He's trying to get you into that bond of marriage very quickly. Before you even realize what's happening, you're already tied in marriage to him, and then it'll be very difficult for you to leave. Because as much energy as they put into tying you down is as much energy as they're going to use in holding you and keeping you down. And so you have to wonder, what is going on with this person mentally that they feel so attached to me too fast and too quickly? A lot of the time it's a sign of insecurity. Like I've said, it could be a sign of a narcissistic individual. It could be a sign of an abusive individual. And sometimes they may not be abusive, but sometimes it's for example, that they may have another family somewhere and they're trying to make sure they marry you very, very quickly and convince you that they are the one very quickly before somebody else begins to tell you, hey, look, this man, by the way, he has X, Y, and Z issues. Because by the time someone comes and tells you, oh, by the way, he has another wife somewhere, you're already in love. So even though someone's actually trying to help you and make you realize the reality of what you're getting yourself into, because your heart is now attached, you're not going to listen, right? Most women do that. They won't listen because their heart is already attached. And the people around them who love them will say, look, this isn't good for you. Look, this isn't good for you for X, Y, and Z reasons, but they're not hearing it because they're already blindsided by the love. So if he's going too deep too soon, it's a red flag. Okay, it's a red flag. Take your time, really look into it. Sometimes some of these men, again, one of the other reasons why I've come to notice some men do this would be, for example, if they're living in a country where they don't have the right to be there and the only way is to marry another woman, then the love becomes, they intensify the love to get her to marry them very quickly so that they can then have access to remain in the country that they are, maybe acquire visas and all of that kind of stuff. There are so many reasons why men will pressure you into marriage so fast, so soon. And I say men, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to be men. Sometimes women do this to men as well. So if you're a man and you're watching this, just take this, but flip it in a way that would make sense for you, meaning a woman could possibly also do this to you. So just be careful, right? Because all I want, honestly, as I do this dawah, is for people to end up in the best scenarios as possible and not end up being used and abused and broken, because there's just too many broken people in this world, and hurt people, right? So we want to avoid that as much as possible. So please be careful if he is intensely in love with you too fast. It's a red flag, sis. The third sign that you may have met someone with wrong intentions is when your intuition tells you this. And I wanted to mention this early, especially for women, because I think our intuition is such a gift. And your intuition is just that sense of knowing, that sense of something you're just like, I can't put my finger on it, but there's just something not right about what's going on here. You can't really give an example. You can't specifically say what it is, but inside of you, it just feels wrong. It feels like something's not quite right here. Now, that doesn't always mean that your intuition is always going to be right, but I think for the most part, our intuition as women is right a lot of the time, but we don't listen to our intuition. A lot of women who get involved in relationships that are so bad for them, or marriages that have turned out so bad for them, will say to you, right from the beginning, something was telling me something was off. But, I thought maybe I was overreacting and I ignored it. And 10 years later, they are in this marriage, they're suffering every single day. There is no day of happiness. And they regret that they didn't listen to their intuition. I feel like Allah made us as women to be very intuitive people. Because if you think about it, we carry children and we birth children. And children don't know how to speak. A mother's going to know the difference between a child crying because they're hungry and a child crying because there may be something else wrong with the child. And the child is not speaking to the mom. Like a newborn can't speak to you and be like, mommy, yeah, and I've got a tummy ache or whatever. But before you know it, the mother's going to figure out something's wrong, right? And it's more than just normal. And so Allah gives us this type of sense of intuition when it comes to even other relations in our lives, but we don't listen to it. So if your intuition keeps nagging you, keeps telling you something is wrong, maybe something is wrong. If your intuition is telling you that maybe this person may have an ulterior motive, 9 times out of 10, he probably does have an ulterior motive. And that is just your way of Allah guiding you to say, something is wrong here, don't go into it. And in that case, you really need to take your time, pray your istihara. Take your time with this person to get to know them, to get to find out more information about them. And when you're doing your research about this person, you don't need to let them know that I need to go and find out information about you. No, you just go and you do your research. You try to get involved in their community, see the people that know them, see what those people have to say about them, read between the lines. I'll make a separate video about reading between the lines when it comes to trying to meet someone, because most things you're not going to ask a question and get a straight answer, right? So listen to your intuition, please. And if it's telling you something is wrong, then take your time. I'm not necessarily saying that just leave the person, but I am saying take your time and look into it very carefully, and only get married when you feel comfortable. And that nagging sense is gone. Not because you pushed it out, but now there is evidence to prove that intuition is wrong. That's when you can let it go and you can move ahead with marriage. Number 4, when he shows extreme jealousy. Now, I know that this is subjective, okay, because what is extreme jealousy in one culture may not be seen as extreme jealousy in another culture. It's funny enough, actually, I was watching a couple of videos on couples from different parts of the world, and there was a specific part of the world where the men, if you happen to speak to another man's wife somewhere on the streets or something like that, and he punches you in the face, then that is seen as something positive because they see it as, oh, you're protecting your wife and all of that. But here in the West, that would be seen as slightly aggressive. especially if the person is not approaching your wife in that kind of a way, and it's just a general conversation. Maybe they're buying or selling stuff, and you react like that. In the West, we will take it as an extreme. So take this as you will, according to what is the norm in your culture. But extreme jealousy is a sign of a seriously insecure person, and a seriously insecure person may end up injuring you one day. So you might think, okay, so why is that? Why would that mean that he has a wrong intention towards me? Well, what are you to him? Is he then acquiring you? And I say acquiring you instead of marrying you, because with people like that, them marrying you, you become like their property, right? So it's the sense of I owe you. So it's a sense of I own you, and therefore you will do as I say. And they are often people who don't like to be controlled, but they like to do the controlling. So you may just be an addition to some of the other things in his life that he wants to have control over. And that may be the reason why he's marrying you, because he needs to feel like a man, and he needs to feel like he's in charge. And in order to do all of that, he needs to feel like he's controlling you. A healthy man doesn't need to control you, right? They understand that you're a human being. You have your own ideas and your own thoughts. You can speak and agree on things. It's not a relationship of control, right? It's not a relationship when one person is dominating the other person. But when a man shows you extreme jealousy, he's probably going to have major control issues. And that is not something you can fix. You can't change him. You can't suddenly be so loving that he stops being controlling and all of a sudden everything is perfect. Okay, so if you settle for someone like that, you have to know that that's what you're just going to have to deal with for the rest of your life. And you're just going to have to accept that because you made the decision to go along with that. Okay, so please be careful of men who show extreme jealousy. You know, little things and he becomes overly jealous about. It's a red flag. Sign number 5, he lies a lot. Why is that a sign that he has a wrong intention for you? Because why do you feel the need to lie? Everybody tells a little bit of a lie every now and again. We've all lied before. Let's just keep it 100. We've all lied before at some point in our lives. So I'm not saying that this person can't be someone they have to be someone who's never lied, because that would be an angel and we're human beings and we're not angels. But if you're finding that this person is lying about major things and minor things, is 100% a red flag. Because why do you feel the need to lie? It's because there's something that you want to hide. Now, is it something that you want to hide because you have an insecurity about that thing? Or is it something that you want to hide because you're afraid that if the person finds out, they won't choose you and therefore they will leave? So these are just some things to think about. If he's approaching you and he's speaking to you and his story's not adding up, lies are quite easy sometimes to tell, because the story never adds up. One day is this, another day is that, the next day is that, because people forget what they say when they lie, oftentimes. And even when they think they're keeping up with their story, if you read between the lines of the other conversations, you find that things just don't quite add up. And so it's very easy to tell that someone is lying. And if someone is lying, you just need to be careful. You need to be careful. Common lies that I think, people tell each other when they're searching for marriage will be things about like lying about their age and how old they are, because they're afraid that, okay, if I tell this other person that this is my age, she might think I'm too old for her, or she might think I'm too young for her, so they lie about that. And I'm not going to make an excuse for that, but I will say that kind of lie is very common. But some people legit lie, and they'll tell you, like, for example, no, I've never been married before. I've never, like sisters, or some sisters will be like, no, I've never been married before. I've never known a man before, until they marry their husband, and their husband then one day finds out that, yep, she's been married a whole time before that. She's known multiple men before you and X, Y, and Z. So someone lying about major and minor things, you have to question why it is that they feel the need to lie. And if you don't, you will end up with trust issues in your marriage. If you end up marrying someone who's lied to you, once you're in the marriage, you will always remember the fact that, and he lied to me about X, Y, and Z. and he lied to me about X, Y, and Z. And the more you remember those things, the more those things build up, the less of trust you have in the marriage, and the more easy it is for the marriage to break apart because there is no trust. So be careful about men who lie consistently. Sign number 6. This one doesn't necessarily mean the person is bad, and it's something that I've touched on before, but sometimes it does mean that that person's intentions for you is wrong. I mentioned before that sometimes men will marry women for things that will be of benefit to them. So whether it is that they're trying to gain the visa of the country that they're in, maybe sometimes it could be that the woman is more wealthy, and so they're trying to benefit from her wealth. Gold digging is not just for women, okay? Nowadays, men have taken this whole gold digging game to a whole nother level. But I want to focus more so on the visa situation, because I know that there are a lot of women of color who watch my videos. And I know that a lot of women of color are not natives of the lands that they live in if they live in the West. For example, I live in the UK, but I was not born here in the UK. Okay, but I have lived here for a very long time. I think it's probably been like 24 years that I've lived here, but I wasn't born here, and my parents are not born here. So I am not a native of this land, right? And so it may be possible that I may marry a man, or that I'm already married, or that I could have married a man who is also not from this country, who's moved here. Now, when you open yourself up to marrying people of other nations and nationalities, and they want to come and live in the country where you are at, you do have to be careful, because you have to ask yourself the question, is this man marrying me for me, to build a life with me? Or is this man marrying me because there is something that he knows he can gain from me? So if you are, let's say, a British citizen, or you're an American citizen, and there is someone in, let's just say, Africa, for example, or someone in Asia, and that person just seems to be putting so much pressure, they seem to have fallen head over heels in love with you, and they want to marry you, there is a part of your mind that has to really ask yourself the question of, is this man really in this for me, or is he in it because he wants to come abroad? Because there is this mindset that over here in the West, life is better, and that over here in the West, we have more money. And so sometimes women are taken advantage of. The man will be everything you want him to be. He will be as patient with you as possible until you marry him and you bring him over to this side of the world. And then soon as he gets his right to remain, that's when you're going to see the real him. Right? A lot of sisters, especially older sisters who haven't been able to get married yet, get taken advantage of by younger men who just seem to have fallen head over heels with these sisters. And they think, you know what? I haven't been able to get married. There's a younger man who's interested in me. I know he doesn't come from this country, but I'll bring him over. And then they bring him over and they get taken advantage of. So a sign that I really want you guys to look out for especially is if the man seems to be keeping records of your relationship, in strange ways. I remember I coached a sister before, and she was telling me that, I met this guy. He did tell me up front that he didn't have the right to be in the country, but he just kept taking pictures of every little thing that we were doing. Like, we would be having a WhatsApp message and he'll screenshot like myself and himself speaking. And she was telling me all this, and as she was telling me all this, in my head was red flag, red flag, red flag. And I said, what he may be trying to do is to keep a record of your relationship, so that when he applies for his immigration case, so that when he applies for his case and right to remain in the country, then he can use that as evidence of how long you've been together. And I said to him, that is a possibility. So just think twice before you go into this and make sure he's in it for you. Now, that doesn't mean that every man that comes from another side of the world is out to marry you just to gain your access to you, to the right to remain with you. Absolutely not. But I am saying that there are, unfortunately, some who use women for that. And as soon as they're done getting what they want, they will go and marry the woman that they truly want to be married to. Oftentimes, they're open to marrying women of other cultures just so that they can get what they want. As soon as they're done getting what they need, they then go back to wherever they come from, and they marry the women of their type or the women from their culture, the women from their villages. So you just don't want to be taken advantage of in that type of a way. So I'm saying to you, if he's not from the same place as you, if he doesn't have the right to be where he's at, pray about it, please. Please pray about it. Take your time. Take your time. Try not to fall in love too easily and too quickly so that you can see things clearly. Because again, these type of men are the men to kind of bombard you with, oh, I'm so in love with you. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I can't wait for us to get married. I can't wait for us to have children. Sometimes they're too eager to have kids. It's a whole bunch of stuff that they're too eager to do. And if you don't think twice, you think, oh my gosh, I found the best thing ever. You jump into it. 10 years down the line, you're left high and dry to take care of yourself because they've left you and they've moved on with the woman that they really want. Number 7, you don't know or you have never met any members of his families. So sis, you may have met this random uncle of his. You may have met a random friend, but you've never met the mother. He might even tell you that his parents are normal, while actually both his parents are alive and kicking. He may tell you that he has no siblings, he has no family member, and he has a whole community of not only family members and friends and etc. and etc. But you have just never met any of them before. Sometimes women find out these things later on when they're like, okay, I went and looked him up on social media. I looked up his name and I saw pictures of certain things. And I found out that he had a whole nother family somewhere else. And he's been lying to me that he's the only child. His parents are dead and blah, blah, blah. These things exist. So if you've never met a member of his family and he's acting like he's serious about marriage until he introduces you to his family members and you can see some type of a resemblance that they are actually families, until then, sis, don't believe it. Don't believe it. Because there are, again, enough people out there taking advantage of women, especially women who come across desperate, which is why I really have to just put it in your brain, sis, that no matter how much you want a man, don't try to come across as desperate. In fact, just don't be desperate would be an easy way to put it. But I know that's not something that's easy for every woman to do. But if you can try your best not to be desperate, it will save you from a lot, because you'll be able to read between the lines and figure these things out. When you behave in a desperate way, when the man can see that you're desperate, anything goes. Okay? So please be careful. He has to introduce you to his family and verify that that is actually his family. Because some people would go as far as hiring certain people or having their friends, right? If he has an older friend who looks like he could be a father figure, just say to this person, look, I need this woman for X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to introduce her to you. I'm going to pretend you're my dad and blah, blah, blah. It sounds really awful, but there are people doing this in this world. So please be careful. Verify that that is actually his family before you even take his marriage proposals or his marriage ideas seriously at all. Because again, the thing with men, if they know that you're not the forever wife and they're just using you for now, or if they have any other negative intentions about you, 9 times out of 10, you will never actually meet their family members. You will never meet them. So if you haven't met any of his family members, he may have wrong intentions for you. Sign number 8. He keeps bringing up conversations about finances. And this is where it may be a red flag of a man who's trying to use you for money. Especially if you happen to be a woman who is well established financially, you're well off, or maybe your family is well off, and he can tell that you come from a background of people who are well off. What I'm actually realizing, having coached a couple of sisters, is that some of these men, what they need one information a lot of the time to know whether you're well off or not. And that is, they will just simply ask you where you live. When they know your postcode, game over. If your postcode is where the rich people live, they don't need to see your bank account. They know where you live. Therefore, they already know that you've got dough. And if you don't have the money, then your family members have the money. Or when your dad passes away, you will inherit the money, and so on and so forth, right? So you find a lot of these men that try to act like, oh, humble, right? I know that I don't have a lot of money, but money doesn't mean anything to me, and blah, blah, blah. But actually, it's a lie. Money means a lot to them, and they're looking for women who have a lot of money to set them off in life. So they, as a man, haven't been able to get themselves together. They haven't been able to make the money. The woman is now the person who they are thinking, she's going to take me to the next level. She's going to be buying me a nice car to drive. We're going to live in a nice house, and it's all going to be coming from her bank account. So if he is bringing up topic about finances a lot, you kind of need to think twice, especially if you are a woman who is in a financially more buoyant position than he is, okay? So sisters, please think twice, okay? The more inexperienced ones will bring up little issues here and there. Oh, they have financial issues here, they've got financial issues there, and they might just bring up the topic here and there, or maybe make a joke about you buying them a gift. Like, what? Like, sis, I hope your sisters are not doing that, right? If you're getting to know a man, you don't need to be buying him nothing, because what you're doing by doing that is you're training him to believe that you're going to be the one spending money on him, right? So please don't be doing stuff like that. But if he keeps bringing up financial topics that don't make sense, I'm not talking about him talking about, okay, how do we manage our money when we get married? I'm not talking about things like that. I'm talking about him just suddenly having all these different problems that needs money to be resolved, and he's suggesting it to you. He may not ask you directly. He may ask you directly, but he may not ask you directly. And you, with your so-called good heart, with all the money in the world, you think you're doing a charitable act, and you're like, it's okay, I'll help you out with this, that, and that. I'll, when we get married, we'll pay off your debt. Like, what? Like, no, we won't. Okay, you will not be paying off any man's debt. He's a man. If there's nothing wrong with him, let him go and find work and let him pay off his own debt. Okay, so you both can come into the marriage and succeed together. It's not one person taking on the load of another person and carrying it on their shoulders. Because like I said, if you begin the relationship in a way, or you give him the sense that, you know what, I'm going to take care of you financially, he's just going to sit back and chill. He's going to become the feminine energy in the relationship, and you are going to be the masculine energy. And there will become a day where you will get absolutely fed up of bailing a grown man out. So please, sisters, do not be financially taken advantage of. Again, this is specifically for my sisters who are financially in a very stable place. I don't want you being taken advantage of. So don't get carried away with your heart. Think twice before you leap. Okay, sisters, those are the 8 signs that a man may be approaching you with the wrong intentions. I hope you found this video beneficial. Obviously, there is so much more that can be said and added onto this. So if you have anything else to add to this video, to warn other sisters about, or brothers out there, or any other commentary, please make sure you leave in the comment section down below. Let's have a conversation there, because sometimes I think a really good teacher also is reading other people's stories and things that they have experienced in their lives. So if you've experienced something that you can put in brief in a short form and just leave it in the comment section down below, other people will go into that section down below and read about people's experiences, and it might just back up some of the things that I'm saying here, and you may be saving other sisters from falling victims into the hands of the wrong men. Having said that, not all men are bad. Not all men are out to get you. Not all men are trash, as people always say. There are good men in this dunya. Honestly, there are. It's just that they have been overshadowed by the negative ones. That's just what's happening. And so may Allah continue to bless and guide our brothers who are upon the right path, and link them up with good women as well, so that they can have fruitful lives. Ameen. All right, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, share it with anyone that you feel may benefit from the contents of today's video, and I will see you guys in my next video. Assalamualaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.